Hello, Assalamu alaikum. This is Ali, and you're watching my YouTube channel. Welcome back to another podcast. आज हम डिस्कस करेंगे कुछ different. We'll be talking about Formula One. It's probably a sport which is not really famous in Pakistan क्योंकि कुछ हद तक इसको nerdy भी consider किया जाता है. You need to have a certain level of intellect and knowledge to follow the sport, which is why you can say मैंने इतना ज़्यादा नहीं किया, because कभी कभी मेरे intellect से ऊपर चला जाता है. But I've always been intrigued by the sport और समझने के लिए और आप सबको समझाने के लिए आज मैंने इनवाइट किया अपने दोस्त को दानियाल को हु इज़ डेफिनेटली इंटेलिजेंट इनफ टू अंडरस्टैंड फार्मूला वन अंडरस्टैंड हाउ थिंग्स गो बाय। तो दानियाल ने आज हमें ज्वाइन किया और अ ह्यूज फर्नांडो अलोंसो फैन दानियाल एक बायस्ड है। मैं आपको पहले ही बता दूं, अगर आपको लग रहा है कि कॉन्वर्सेशन किसी और तरफ जा रही है तो आप समझ जाएंगे कुछ हद तक ये बायस्ड हो जाते हैं। तो दानियाल, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल थैंक यू सो मच फॉर ज्वाइनिंग। कैसा है, हाउ आर यू?
I'm great, Ali. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am a huge admirer of your YouTube channel. I've been watching all your videos religiously, as you know very well. I've been giving you feedback as well. So, thank you for sort of increasing my understanding of cricket, of football. And yeah, really glad you're venturing into the Formula One world as well.
नहीं, एब्सोल्युटली आई थिंक जनरली अगर देखा जाए तो इट्स अ स्पोर्ट विच इज़ डेफिनेटली ग्रोइंग। ठीक है, आई वुड से कुछ हद तक ये है कि एक बंदा ज़्यादा डोमिनेट करता है विच इज़ पीपल कैन लूज इंटरेस्ट, बट इफ़ यू रियली फोकस ऑन द नुआंसेस इट्स अ वेरी एक्साइटिंग स्पोर्ट, राइट? तो पर्सनली लाइक हाउ आई मीन रिसेंटली वी जस्ट हैड द अज़रबैजान ग्रांड प्री, ठीक है, और जिस तरह पियास्ट्री की मदद से मैक्लारेन हैव लाइक गॉन ऑल द वे टू द टॉप, राइट? इट्स बिन सम स्टोरी, ठीक है? हाउ डू यू सी इट एंड like take it away, हमें समझाएं कि like why is this so exciting?
Yeah, it's definitely a great time to be a Formula One fan these days, and mainly it's because currently we have four different teams who are competing for wins. We haven't had this for decades now. I think the closest we ever come to this was back in 2012 or 2010, where three or four teams were competing for wins regularly. लेकिन बीच में भी exciting seasons आए, लेकिन it has been only Mercedes versus Ferrari or Mercedes versus Red Bull recently. Or the past couple of years have been completely dominated by Red Bull and by Max Verstappen. Max won 19 out of 22 races last year, so you can understand why some people thought the sport was really boring. आप कोई भी हर संडे को जब भी रेस ऑन करते थे तो आपको पता होता था कि यार मैक्स वर्स्टैपन ने जीत जाना है। और लास्ट 2 इयर्स ऐसे ही रहा है, और इस साल के फर्स्ट हाफ में भी ऐसे ही रहा है। फर्स्ट क्वार्टर में एक्चुअली आउट ऑफ द फर्स्ट 7 or 8 रेसेस ही ओनली लॉस्ट वन एंड वन द रेस्ट। और उसके बाद से सिंस मायामी थिंग्स हैव चेंज्ड। उसमें बेसिकली मैक्लारेन हैज बीन immensely quick recently. उनके कुछ अपडेट्स आए इन मायामी, इन इमोला, और उसके बाद से द कार हैज फाउंड अ लॉट ऑफ पेस, और लैंडो नॉरिस एंड ऑस्कर पियास्ट्री, बोथ द मैक्लारेन ड्राइवर्स, हैव बीन competing for wins. अब सीजन थोड़ा सा इसमें ये है कि अब चैंपियनशिप फाइट तो है बिटवीन लैंडो नॉरिस और मैक्स वर्स्टैपन, उनके बीच में 59 पॉइंट्स का गैप है। लेकिन उसका मेन रीजन ये है कि मैक्स वाज रियली डोमिनेंट इन द फर्स्ट पार्ट ऑफ द सीजन। उसकी वजह से मैक्स कैश्ड इन अ लॉट और ही वन मोस्ट ऑफ द रेसेस। लेकिन जब से मैक्लारेन का चेंज ऑफ पेस हुआ है तो लैंडो हैज बीन कैचिंग अप, although not as much as he should for an exciting
बट
championship
दानियाल,
end, लेकिन
मैं आपको इंटरप्ट करूंगा इधर बिकॉज आई थिंक आई कैन लर्न एंड एवरीवन कैन लर्न फ्रॉम यू। अब बात यह है कि यस आई एग्री विद यू, ओवर द लास्ट 2 to 3 years ना मैंने सिर्फ दो नाम ही सुने, हैमिल्टन वर्स्टैपन, हैमिल्टन वर्स्टैपन। ये हुआ कैसे है कि ऑल ऑफ अ सडन ये अब मैक्लारेन ठीक है इन द मिक्स एंड देन Piastri, I hadn't heard about him before, right? Till you told me about him today, जब मैं आपसे अपने notes discuss कर रहा था। Like, is it something on our end कि मतलब this was a big name and we weren't aware of this, or did you see this coming, or are you as surprised being a Formula One fan?
I'd be honest, I did not see this coming. I mean, in this fashion, I did not see Oscar Piastri becoming as good a driver so quickly in his F1 career. You might not have heard of him because he only debuted last season. He joined McLaren after a huge fiasco. First, he was signed by Alpine or Renault, as they were formerly called, or फिर McLaren, they stole him from Alpine, even though he'd signed a contract, और बड़ी controversy हुई थी, and he made a really famous tweet as well. So announcing that he was actually joining McLaren. Or he was really good last season as well, लेकिन obviously he wasn't as experienced. His race pace, मतलब उनके tire management wasn't as good. Or in qualifying as well, Lando Norris was out qualifying him, which he still is actually if you see the season stats as well. लेकिन he has shown rapid improvement. और what sets him apart from most of the drivers on the grid is that he's really ruthless. जो सारे कहते हैं कि जो सारे बेस्ट ड्राइवर्स हैं, सारे elite ड्राइवर्स हैं, उनके अंदर एक ruthlessness होती है कि वो they're not afraid to make bold moves on the track, or they're not afraid to piss people off. And he seems to be of that mold. Matlab, he's in his very, I think he's only what 39 races old now in F1, 39 or 40, or he's made actually less than that, 35 races I think, or he's made quite a few amazing overtakes. Azerbaijan maybe the move that won him the race was an overtake on Charles Leclerc, or he only had, or basically, if you watch the race, Ferrari, I feel, was slightly quicker than McLaren. They had pole position. Leclerc had pole. He set off quickly as well. He was gapping Piastri in second. और फिर Piastri pitted first. He put on the fresh hards. और he caught up to Leclerc a bit. और उसमें भी उनको लैंडो नॉरिस ने बहुत हेल्प की because Piastri was under threat from behind और लैंडो नॉरिस held up the guys behind him to help Piastri find some race time. और फिर Oscar Piastri, Leclerc pitted as well. He came out right in front of Oscar. Oscar knew he had only a couple of laps to attack him before his tires got temperature. और उनके पास एक चांस था, यानी उन्होंने बहुत अच्छी मूव की. इट वाज फ्रॉम वे फार बैक. और उसके बाद Leclerc tried the entire race. Oscar did not have the pace to run away from him, which shows that Ferrari was probably the quicker car over the race distance. लेकिन he kept his position. Or being really young, it was really impressive seeing that he was completely under pressure for about a good 30 laps. लेकिन he did not lose his head. He kept it or he won the race as well.
I mean, yeah, like hearing all of this, मुझे personally ऐसी feel आती है, and like, correct me if I'm wrong. I think this sounds like a young Verstappen, maybe 3, 4 years ago, right? Someone who basically became famous because of his bold moves on the track, right? Or कुछ हद तक ये भी कहा जाता था कि he would put other drivers at risk. Now that's something that we hear, right? Because we mostly get our information from the tabloids. We don't watch as
Yes.
many races as you do, but like, what do you feel about that? Is he a young Verstappen? Is he more bold? And like, what's the ceiling for this guy, in your opinion?
I wouldn't categorize him as a Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen is different. For example, if I'd have to pick a similar athlete from the football or the cricket world, I'd say Lionel Messi is a Max Verstappen. He's a freak. I don't see anyone else competing with him talent-wise on the grid. Oscar Piastri, in his own terms, is really quick. He's won all the junior championships. He won F3 in his first season. He won F2 in his first season. So he's really talented. That shows. Or he's going up against a really seasoned and really quick driver in Lando Norris, and he's doing well. But I would say he has potential to be a future world champion. This is just my unprofessional opinion. Lekin I I don't think I'd be doing him any favors if I compare him with the Max Verstappen. Max is elite. He's shown that he's right there up with Senna or Schumacher or Hamilton. He's that good.
Or Fernando Alonso, right?
I mean, yeah, I'd like to say so, like Fernando's stats don't back up that claim.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've always heard that Fernando Alonso is the Steven Gerrard, right, of the Formula
Yeah, I
One
could
world.
actually agree with
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much like where my knowledge is. Okay, so like, uh, let's do a little bit. Let's do a preview of the Singapore Grand Prix. ठीक है? I mean, with this exciting end, what are your expectations? Anything that we should be on a lookout for if anyone's following that, and things that you think could end up being pretty exciting?
So, firstly, my first prediction is there are no predictions because, as I mentioned earlier, there are four teams who can take race wins. Or Singapore is really interesting in that it's a street circuit. It's hot and humid. It's in East Asia, so conditions are different as well. Or Uzair, you don't really see, for example, last season, Red Bull was the championship car. They won all the races last season, Perez and Max, but one. And that one race was in Singapore because Ferrari and McLaren were stronger than them there. So Singapore is an outlier. You can never know what you can expect. I'd still say I think McLaren and Ferrari would be the favorites going into the race. Although Mercedes have also announced they're bringing an upgrade, and so have Ferrari. So we don't know yet कि सारा order क्या होता है. लेकिन last season भी जैसे Ferrari were quick, they took pole position. और सिंगापुर में considering it's a street track, it's very twisty, तो their pole position counts for a lot. Ferrari have been taking pole positions there for the last 3 or 4 years now, I think, consecutively between Leclerc and Sainz. So they are always strong there. Lekin I think the one thing to look out for this weekend is that there's a prediction for rain. Currently, आजकल सिंगापुर में thunderstorms चल रहे हैं, तो there's a huge prediction for rain on Saturday. और as you know, बारिश में everything evens out, और it's down to the driver skill, और unpredictable चीज़ें हो जाती हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा crashes होते हैं, और लोगों के अपनी रेसेस और वीकेंड्स खराब हो जाते हैं ड्राइवर्स के। तो I'd still say it would be a really good race to watch. It would be a really good qualifying session to watch on Saturday because of the rain being thrown into the equation. But I'd still
And
expect Ferrari and McLaren to be strong.
yeah, then quickly before we move over to the prediction and the season overview, what's going on with Mercedes? And like I know like there's been a split up partition between them and Hamilton, but matlab, could you talk a little bit about that? And you did mention an update to remind me cheese like it's strange not seeing Mercedes being mentioned in the same breath when like a prediction for a championship is being discussed. So can you tell us what's going on over there?
Yeah, these are really interesting times for Mercedes. They'll be moving away from Hamilton, obviously, who's been there for what, 11 years now. So obviously, it will be a huge change for them. Or you're right, they haven't been as competitive as they were previously for the past 3 years. They haven't been at the very front of the grid. मतलब हर सीजन में एक आध दो विंस वो ले लेते थे. लास्ट सीजन तो उनको नहीं मिली, उससे पिछले सीजन एक जॉर्ज रसल ने ले ली. और इस सीजन भी, दिस सीजन हैज बीन बेटर एक्चुअली कंपेयरिंग इट विद द लास्ट 2 years. हैमिल्टन की भी दो विक्ट्रीज हैं. George Russell won in Austria as well, although that was a lucky win because Verstappen and Lando Norris collided. But I'd say it's really interesting. It seems कि उधर एक shift आ गया है. Well, Hamilton does not seem, to me, it doesn't seem as Hamilton is the lead driver over there anymore because he's on his way out. George Russell has outdone him quite significantly in qualifying terms. In races, he's been a bit unlucky as well, and it also shows that Hamilton का experience बहुत ज़्यादा in races. He has beaten Russell in some races, but as last weekend as well, Hamilton was just stuck behind slower cars or he could not overtake due to a setup choice that he made, or Russell was fighting with the guys at the front and he made his way to the podium. Even though, although I understand two guys in front of him crashed out, but that's still a podium nonetheless, or he's doing a good job. But I think I'd be really interested to see how things go at Mercedes next year. They're bringing in a very young kid, 18-year-old Kimi Antonelli, who will be replacing Hamilton. उनको भी कहा जाता है कि he is as good as a Verstappen or a Hamilton. So he's a great star to look out for in the future. So let's see how things go. But yeah, interesting times for Mercedes coming in.
All right. Last question है आपसे and like obviously I'm going to ask you for your prediction, right, for the rest of the season for the Singapore Grand Prix and anything else that you feel we should be. I mean, you've mentioned quite a lot, but उसके अलावा if you feel there's anything else to be highlighted, so take it away. Take it home, in fact.
Uh, Prediction for Singapore, I really have no idea what's going to happen. I'd I'd bet on Charles Leclerc because he's been really quick around there. He almost won in Azerbaijan. He does have form. He won in Monza as well. तो उनकी फॉर्म अच्छी है. If it feels like Ferrari's upgrades are working, they're supposedly bringing a new upgrade as well. So they should be quick, and Leclerc is always quick. So if I had to bet on someone, I'd bet on Leclerc. Lekin I wouldn't be putting too much money on him because it's really competitive at the front. Or with regards to the championship, I think that would be a more easier prediction because Max Verstappen has a 59-point lead over Lando Norris. We only have 7 more races to go, so Lando has to outscore him about 9 points per race, which I think is a tall order. Max is still Max. Red Bull might not be as competitive right now, लेकिन Max is still bringing out results. वो एक आध podium ले लेता है कभी. अभी भी वो fifth आया है, and Lando Norris only finished fourth. I understand the circumstances, लेकिन Norris needs to be doing more. Or I do see Lando Norris as an amazing driver. I think he's a really well-rounded driver, or he has really minor things that he needs to iron out to become a championship level driver. लेकिन I think the cushion Max Verstappen has, 59 points, is a lot to overturn in 7 races. Or I don't think Red Bull is that slow. Or another important factor here is कि अगर Lando Norris, if McLaren was dominating the entire field, if they were quicker than everyone else by a mile, I'd say, yeah, I could probably bet on Lando. लेकिन they're competing with Ferrari. Mercedes is also really competitive in some races. They're sometimes quicker than McLaren. So it's really hard to see how Lando can get 5 or 6 straight wins out of the season, and expecting Max to not really get a great result here or there. So I'd say Max for the championship. However, I think next season all bets are off क्योंकि F1 में ऐसे होता है कि हर कुछ साल की regulations आती हैं. They last for 5 to 6 years usually. और फिर एक न्यू सेट ऑफ रेगुलेशंस आती हैं जिस पे हर बंदा शुरू से स्टार्ट करता है गाड़ी डेवलप करना. तो इस जो करंट रेगुलेशंस का टेन्योर है इसमें तो रेड बुल हैज बीन फास्टर देन एवरीबॉडी. दे हैव बीन विनिंग सिंस 22 और वो जीत रहे हैं इस साल भी. होप आई थिंक मैक्स विल विन द ड्राइवर्स ऑल्दो मैक्लारेन विल टेक द कंस्ट्रक्टर्स, मैक्लारेन और फरारी. लेकिन आई थिंक नेक्स्ट ईयर बिकॉज सेम रेगुलेशंस चल रही हैं इतना कोई ग्रिड ऑर्डर शिफ्ट नहीं होगा और मैक्लारेन एंड फरारी they seem to be on the upward trend. So I think we could see a great championship fight next year from the start. Also considering we do have some young drivers who've never really had a championship battle, a season-long championship battle. Leclerc was in the championship in 2022 for about 4 or 5 months. So I'm really excited to see the likes of Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc. Hamilton will be at Ferrari as well. So I think he's made a good move seeing Ferrari's progress right now. So it will be good to see him fighting for consistent wins as well. So I think the one thing to highlight for me would be look out for 2025. And hopefully Fernando Alonso also sneaks in a win. It's something I've been looking for the past 5 or 6 years now, a long time. So yeah, all to look out
But
for next year.
then I have to I have to ask you something. So like if Hamilton does move to Ferrari, what does that say about Charles Leclerc? Like, do you think both of them like racing together, or is Leclerc going to move on, or am I just diving too much into
Uh,
something which might not result in a big
I
controversy?
don't, I don't think so. I don't see Charles Leclerc moving on from Lewis Hamilton. I think Hamilton. I don't think qualifying wise he's in his peak right now. He's 40 years old, so he's definitely past his best years. Or Charles Leclerc, he's probably, if you ask me, he's the fastest driver on the grid, qualifying wise. Although race pace, you could probably say Max Verstappen or Lando Norris are slightly quicker, but yeah, so it will be interesting for Hamilton. I think it will be really competitive, especially on Sundays, because race days tend to bring out the best in Lewis Hamilton, and he's a seven-time world champion. You can't count him out. तो हो सकता है कि इनका बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग होगा. मुझे पर्सनली आई डोंट सी चार्ल्स क्लर्क मूविंग ऑन. आई डोंट थिंक हैमिल्टन बहुत लंबे अरसे के लिए फरारी आ रहे हैं. अगर वो 4-5 साल के लिए आ रहे होते तो आप कह सकते हो कि यार हाँ ठीक है, चार्ल्स क्लर्क कैन सी इज नंबर वन सीट गोइंग अवे. लेकिन I don't think so.
All right. Thank you so much, Daniel. So, as per Daniel, he feels that Max Verstappen is going to win the championship, which has been the case ever since he stopped Hamilton from breaking Schumacher's record all those years back, courtesy a controversial call made in the final lap. So, Daniel, thank you so much for joining
Yeah,
us and breaking down things in
thank you,
great
Ali.
detail. We're definitely going to focus on the F1 based on some of the things that you've highlighted. Or I do like your point that next season we're going to get a more competitive championship because of these young drivers gaining some valuable experience. Until then, you know what, we'll just have to enjoy Max Verstappen lapping himself
Yeah,
onto another championship. So, really appreciate you joining Daniel, and till next time. Allah Hafiz.
thank you, Ali. Allah Hafiz. Allah Hafiz.